Welcome to another episode of Ask Dr. John, a father daughter conversation about American change agents, a life and legacy of seeking diversity, equality, and inclusion by Dr. John F. Leeke, my father, and yours truly, Ananda Leeke. So today we're talking about my dad's work with the National Education Association, the NEA, which is based here in Washington, D.C. So, Dr. John, how you doing?
Doing okay.
All right, all right. So, the NEA, this magical place, meaningful place. Tell us about your initial work with the National Education Association and how you started your career.
Yeah. I began working for the NEA in 1968. In fact, I my first day of work was, I think, September the 4th or 5th. It was kind of almost like, for so long I had always started work. When you're a teacher,
Mhm.
September is the starting of the new school year. So it was kind of like I was starting the new school year when I showed up at the NEA on 16th Street Northwest. Um, and that was uh, that was very significant because um, all of a sudden now I recognize I'm working for a national organization. Um, and I know there are lots of people who work for national organizations, but they don't generally start as early as I did. Well, because I was 28 years old, I wasn't yet 30 years old, and I'm now a staff person working for this national and very large organization because they've always had well over 1 million members because that's the teachers and other staff positions. Uh, so that was enormous. And the other thing I must just say, this was one of the times that I was taking a real chance because I left a pretty secure teaching position in Flint, Michigan. In fact, I had already moved out of the classroom and was working as an elementary counselor uh, in one school. Uh, and I took this job with a 1 year contract. There was no guarantee that I was going to continue to work for the National Education Association. So it was one of the first big risks that I took. Um, so I had to trust that this was going to be okay. And and at this point, it wasn't just the concern. It was concern that Teresa had. And because at that point, there were now six of us that I was going to be responsible for from a financial standpoint. But at any rate, uh, we uh, we made the decision, we made the move, and I started to work uh, in September.
So let's back it up just a little bit for those that may be just joining us and may not know that you had a relationship with the National Education Association before you even came to the national headquarters in DC. So let's roll it back just a little
Yeah.
bit. While you were a guidance counselor in an elementary school in Flint, Michigan, you became involved in the Flint Education Association. So
Yeah.
let's talk about just briefly, how did you get involved in the Flint Education Association? And then let's talk briefly about the conference that brought you into the atmosphere, the community of the folks that you would end up working with for quite a bit of your career at the NEA.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Let's back it up just one slight bit too. Uh, when I was hired as a teacher in 1963 in the Flint Community Schools, I also became a member of the Flint Education Association and the Michigan Education Association and the National Education Association. You would when you be, when you were a teacher, you were pretty much expected to join the teacher organization. So I did. I was not in the first couple of years. I was not involved. I was a member. I paid my dues. But most organizations like that, they come looking at you, and and so a parent of one of my students, he was very active in the Flint Education Association, and so naturally he started to asked me how. Oh, I know he knew I was a member, of course, but he said, "Well, how about getting involved in such and such?" I said, "I said I can't. I got too much going on. I got a family. I have to work a part time job, so on and so forth. And I was considering starting uh, grad school for my master's." But anyway, he never gave up, and so then all of a sudden he came to me. He said, "Well, we got something. It's not a long term. It's a very short term. Uh, how about being willing to serve on this committee?" Okay, so I said okay, and I did, and it worked out fine. But then when I finished my master's and I became an elementary school counselor. I had a little bit more freedom and all, and so I I said yes to another time that they came and asked me. They said, "Well, there's a special conference that the National Education Association is going to be doing, and we are putting together a team of people. We'd like for you to be one of the teacher representatives." I said, "Oh, okay." uh, s- so I did, and we went to this conference at a conference facility that the Michigan Education Association had, and it was in a location called Battle Creek, Michigan. I think that's significant. Anyway, um, I uh, I was part of a team of 25 individuals from Flint, and we joined another 8 or 9 teams from other relatively large urbans in the state of Michigan. Boy, was that some kind of conference! Uh, and one of the interesting aspects of it that they had also one of the sponsors or connectors of this conference was the U.S. Department of Justice, and this was 1967. And if some of you realize or remember, this was some time that there was a lot of things going on, a lot of activity, a lot of uh, uh, pushback at what was happening in the schools and especially in urban America. So anyway, I was in that conference, and I just I'll never forget this scene. I can I can see it today as I'm talking right now. We were in a large room. We might call it a great room with a big, huge fireplace and everything. And it was an evening session, and I don't know who this man was, but he was a African American man. He was about had to be 6'3", 6'4", probably well over 200 pounds. Had a large beard and was of the time, had a pretty good sized bush, and he was standing up in front of there, and he was giving it to the participants. And he was talking about all of the problems and going on in urban America. And then he began to talk to the people about, and you got responsibility to make some difference. And he was shouting at them. Some of the people actually started to cry. I mean, I had never seen anything like it. I was just mesmerized by it. Well, anyway, the conference went on, and as a result, there were a lot of recommendations asking and saying to the Michigan Education Association that they needed to get off of there and start doing something to make changes in urban education in those communities. Well, I was I was moved. I was excited. They got me. They had me. I went back to Flint and I got connected up with another colleague, and we started doing stuff in Flint, which led us that in the next year, in I think probably March or April of 68, we pulled off a conference similar to that one where we went back to Battle Creek and we took and four teams of 25 people. They represented the four high schools that we had at that time. And they were teachers, administrators, community people, business people, and some of the community people, similar with the help of the Justice Department again, helped to identify some of the individuals who were out in the community uh, trying to get attention to those issues. And so we pulled it off. And the man who had been the representative from the NEA, uh, Dr. Samuel Etheridge, he was the staff person from the NEA, and so of course he he knew I was doing this, and so after it was over, and we went back to Flint after the conference and continued to try to do the recommendations that came. So during the summer, every summer, the National Education Association, they have a convention, and so I got a letter from him inviting me to be part of a pre-conference event that the NEA held. And so off I go. I'm now headed down to Dallas, Texas. And so I was on the program. And when I was in Dallas, another individual who became very significant in my life, uh, George Jones, who had just recently been uh, appointed or placed as the director of a special task force on urban education. And he said, I'd like to interview you. And so I got interviewed. And after it, he offered me a job. And I did go ahead and say yes. with the stipulation this is a 1 year contract. And I had not yet had any conversation with Teresa. So naturally, when I got home, we had to have a conversation and we had to have a bit of discussion. It wasn't just me saying, "Oh, I'm excited. I've been offered a job." No, no, we had some deliberations about that. Uh, the end of that though said she said yes, and so um, that brought me to the NEA.
And when you started working, well, thank you for giving the background on that, because I think it's important for people to know that your journey was not linear. It
No.
it it was very much wrapped up in change
Yes.
in so many different ways, and you making choices along the way, and that it was wrapped up in relationships with people and taking risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to the NEA, you have this 1 year contract, you're with this new division, this new director, and you're a staff of one. And we
It was actually we had a staff of four. George, the director,
Mhm,
the assistant director was a Jesuit priest, Father Joseph Devlin,
mhm.
and a fourth person, uh, Linda Mars, a relatively young white woman who was already employed by the NEA, but in a different department.
Okay, so you all are working together, you have conferences, you have task reports, and then in the following, your work is so well done, that you all, was it you tripled the budget? Or
Well, what we did was we finished the report, which
Mhm,
was Schools of the Urban Crisis,
mhm,
and that was approved by the NEA's Representative Assembly. And
mhm,
they then said that they wanted the next year for the recommendations that were in the task force report
mhm.
to start getting those accomplished. And at that point, uh, it was just George and I that next year to go about those recommendations. And we did a bang up job. Let me just say, I did one, excuse me, hell of a job because George Jones said to me on our first day of that second year, he said, "You're my horse, and you're going to the field, and you got the responsibility to start getting some of these recommendations going." He said, "I'll be here at headquarters and I'll make sure that we take care of everything. But you got the responsibility." And so that second year, I did go to the field. I was on the road a lot, and but it was highly successful, uh, and we were able to triple the budget that
Mhm.
they had initially set up for us. We had a budget of about $82,000. We tripled it. We were up to almost $300,000. And at that point, yeah, my career at the NEA was off and running. I, I was secure. I had gotten past that first year of contract. Yeah.
And while you were at the NEA, I just want to have you share with the listening audience the different divisions that you worked with, because you were in this one division and then you moved over.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. All told, I was during my career, I would have been in three divisions. First, the task force and the urban project, and then worked in the uh, Human Relations Center, which has had several different names, the Human Rights, and but and that was a really enjoyable period of my work for about 4 or 5 years. Did a lot of great things. Got to know some wonderful colleagues who I'm still friend, close friends with. And then I uh, applied for a job in the instruction and professional development unit of NEA. And so that had a little bit different focus. But again, I had the opportunity to work on some truly change making projects and meet some very incredible, knowledgeable individuals who also continued in my life in a variety of different ways. And some we are still as close as ever. So,
Yeah.
yes, my my career working for the NEA was wonderful. I would not have left the NEA if I didn't think that I could maybe do even more,
Mhm.
both in terms of making change, but also increasing uh, my my circumstances.
Yeah. So 1968 to 1985, those are the years that you started and you completed your career with the NEA. And shortly after finishing your staff work with them, you were hired back as a consultant, as an entrepreneur,
Yep.
and you began to work on this intern program. And I want you to tell everybody about that and why it mattered the most to you in your career.
Yeah. Yeah. And I probably need to take a little bit of time doing that because that intern program turned out to be a program that lasted 27 years.
Mhm.
Um, it's interesting. I'll go back to the start. Uh, yeah, I left the NEA in September of '85, and of course set up John F. Leeke Associates. That next year, um, uh, Pat Orange, who was at that time she was the director of uh, the Human Resources Division, and she said, "John, could you come down and meet with me and Vinnie Kernan, and we'd like to talk to you about something that we've been given the responsibility to do." So I did. And so I went down and they, of course, started to give me a little bit of history of what was going on. And what had happened was that the NEA's representative assembly, with the urging of the uh, NEA Black Caucus, had said to the NEA, you need to do something about increasing the number of women and people of color who are paid staff people working for the teachers of the nation. Uh, uh, I said, oh, wow. I didn't have any idea of this. Now, I had previously, when I was staff person, I had worked on a couple of efforts to increase the number of minorities who were actively involved in the NEA. So I mean, it wasn't going to be like I didn't have some kind of sense of what this was all about. And of course, I've been doing other things that were trying to increase the inclusion of everybody. So they gave me a few more details, and I said, "Well, I tell you what, give me a couple weeks, uh, and uh, I'll give some thought, and I'll put something down on paper, and I'll come back to you." When I went back, I had a pretty full, laid out plan. Because when you make a change, you got to have a plan. so I did. I put that together, and Pat and Vinny said, "This is good. Let us take it to the executive committee, and because we had to get their approval and so forth." So they did. They came back to me pretty quickly and said, "We'd like to have you do it." And of course, now this is now under John F. Leeke Associates, and so I gotta sign me a little contract now and talk about how much money I'm supposed to be getting and so forth. So that was all worked out, and then I began uh, the work, and they had assigned an NEA staff person to work with me in all, and and so I had to do a variety of things initially. We had to uh, think about exactly when would we start this intern training program. And my plan called for having a month-long intensive um, training session, and it would be held in the Washington area. Then we had to work out um, how would we announce this to the broader NEA community, which would be NEA members who would make application. So we had to figure out, and I had to give them a design for an application thing and a process for reviewing the applications, then deciding from the applications that come in who would be invited for interviews, and then what the focus and the interview would be, and getting people who were employed at the NEA, staff people who would be responsible for doing the interviewing, thereby then selecting. A good bit of work was being done. In addition, had to working with my NEA partner, staff partner, to select a site. Now that was an interesting experience I because I'd already been doing lots of um, uh, training sessions, retreats, and so forth. And so I knew the importance of having a good facility, and especially if you were going to have people spending time a month away from home, um, and working long hours and in the summertime in Washington, D.C. Uh, so in talking with Garfield said, "Well, let me see if we can get on a college campus." And so he went out to the University of Maryland. Uh, and so he came back all happy and said, "Oh, John, I think we're going to be able to use the University of Maryland." I said, "Okay, so let's go out and take a look." Well, I was familiar with a uh, a retreat type site at the University of Maryland, but it was in the adult learning area. It wasn't in the regular campus, but what they had was going. And so Yeah, it said, well, here they will stay in the dormitories and they will have their meals over in the cafeteria, and then they will have be able to go into some classrooms. Now, I immediately I knew I said, "Oh no, 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 Garfield, we can't do that. That will not work." Absolutely. I know that it's very reasonable and all of that, but that will not work. We can't have adult people staying in the that kind of dormitory, walking across campus in the heat of July. And
And
then
so,
so anyway, I I told him we couldn't do it. And so at that point, uh because I thought he was going to be looking at this site, the adult learning place, and that would have met what I thought were the type of facility. So we didn't, but we wound up getting one out in Maryland at the 4-H Center.
and so you had the 4-H center, and just to move it ahead,
Yeah.
I want to touch on first. You had the first one at the 4-H center, and then they moved into hotels.
Yes.
I want to pinpoint so folks will understand what's the name of the intern program
Oh, yes.
and the people that participated in the intern.
Yeah. Yes. It's the NEA Women no, NEA affirmative action for women and people of color. Okay. And so to get you right, catch up a little bit more, we held our first uh, program in the summer of 87. So the first class was 1987. And there were 16 people who made the cut. And they were see some several black men, black women, white women. Now, this was a program that was for women and people of color.
And so I want to stop you because I want to
Yeah.
give the correct name. It's in
Oh,
chapter
okay.
18 of the book. It's called the NEA Affirmative Action UniServ Intern Program for Women and Ethnic Minorities. I'm just correcting this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did.
No, it's okay. You're busy living and working in it, and
Yeah.
yeah, so if you're looking for that information, because we
And-
know that folks from the National Education Association and former interns and folks, they will be looking for it. It's chapter 18 in the book, American Change Agent, available on IngramSpark, Amazon, and Barnes and Noble. Go to anandaleek.com/Dr. John to get the links. So the people that participated in this program, they came from a wide range of backgrounds. They were teachers, former teachers,
Yep.
staff.
Yeah, they would primarily the first couple of classes were almost exclusively teachers.
Mhm,
Uh, and some of them were pretty active members in their local association.
mhm,
Uh, but as we moved along in the years, we began to also get some folks that were not real active, but the the leaders at their local saw them as having great potential for doing staff work. Now,
okay.
uh, to to be a staff person, you had to be able to negotiate contracts. You had the ability to know how to handle grievances. You needed to know how to organize, and I felt they needed to know about issues of diversity, particularly racism and sexism.
Mhm.
And so I designed that 4-week training program to deal with 4 modules, and those 4 that I just mentioned. I took hand in selecting the staff people who would be trainers. They were members of the NEA family. Some were NEA staff, some were state staff, um, but they were all within the NEA family. I took responsibility for the fourth week of the program, which focused on uh, a great deal on diversity and also uh, sort of educational plan change, because that's something that I knew a whole lot. I didn't necessarily know a lot about all of the intricacies of negotiations and grievance and all. At any rate, we we did have a very successful, highly intensive 4 week or month long training session. After that, they would go back home for a short period, and then they would go for a essentially about a 2 month internship where they would be assigned to a local association. He could not work in the same local that they were from. And we took time to place them based upon what we had learned about what they needed to further their development.
Mhm.
Let me just say that they completed that, and of the 16 people who started the program, 14 were hired.
Mhm.
Uh, the two that weren't had made a decision. They, after everything they went through, they did not want to go further.
All right. Well, that's success. And
Yes.
so you had this program for 27 years, correct?
Yep. Right.
And about how many people came through that program? Would you estimate?
I would have to say roughly close to 300 people. I know almost for a fact that a little over 200 went through the program, got hired, have stayed. Some have uh, gone on to work for the national education or their state affiliate,
Mhm.
uh, and a number now have retired.
Okay. And then all of the people that became directors of the not all, but one of your interns became two of your interns became directors of the
That's right. And
intern program.
they were both out of the class of '89, and
Oh,
they had nicknamed themselves the Mighty Fine of '89.
all right. So I want you to read one of the excerpts from one of your interns so people can get a feel for the impact you made. And then we're going to close out with um, just a few thoughts on your impact of your work and what you've been able to glean from people's
I
experiences.
know that um, I know you're familiar with the individuals. Which one would you think? Either Nas or Brian Warren? Which one?
I think you should read Nas today.
Nas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brian, we'll read you at some of the readings that we have coming up if you're watching. We'll get you. We'll give
Yeah.
everybody a shout out at some point.
Yeah. Let me just say the one I want to read is Nas Afi. She's a black woman. She, of course, was in the class of '89. She is now an organizational specialist at the National Education Association. She is one of the two who has been the director of the program, and she was director for about 5 years. And just to say, Nas was again one of those teachers, a young teacher at the time she entered the program, and probably would have never thought she would ever be where she is now. But at any rate, and uh, she has been uh, very close to me. Uh, I'm just going to read just a couple of things here. I would also say I would generally, on the first day of the program, I would tell the group, your life will never be the same. And that, I think they all came to it. Some even talked about the program as like being in boot camp. Anyway, she says the program was intense with long hours and tedious work, but somehow the core staff made the journey an honor and pleasure for each of us to be there. A bit later in her remarks, 30 years later, I still remember the experiences from being a member of the intern class of 1989. I am still proud to proclaim it as a highlight of my life. I am still grateful to all the trainers, but in a very deep way to Dr. John, Dolores Rozier, and Dr. Deborah Kirby for helping me transform my life. I am proud to claim their success in me, as I was fortunate to be able to coordinate the program, the training and field mentoring experience for 6 years, once on the staff at the NEA. It's a great tribute to the program. Um, it's a tribute to me. I know because I was the architect. I was the individual for the first 5 years of the program. I lived with them every day.
Mm.
I ate breakfast with those who would come to breakfast. I had lunch with them. I had dinner with them. And in the evenings, I would have individual one on one sometimes, or we would even be at the pool when I would relax and they would relax. Yes, I was with them 24/7. But I'm going to tell you, I am just so proud of the accomplishments that they have made. And just whenever there are NEA events, they gather together. And they may be from different classes. They attend each other's significant events like weddings, uh, uh, births of children, some who have passed on. There will be interns who will be there. Uh, it's a family. Uh, it's so much of what I value and how I've tried to lead my life. This has been the most significant change effort of my life.
And I think that's a great way to end it. If you want to know more about this amazing work that my dad was involved in, and I would say still involved in, because he's still connected to people and people call him with questions. And he provides support in so many different ways. Go to American Change Agent A Life and Legacy of Seeking Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion, a memoir that we both co-wrote together. It's available on IngramSpark, Amazon, and Barnes and Noble. You can go to anandaleek.com/Dr. John to get those links. We urge you to purchase the book through IngramSpark because as entrepreneurs, self-publishers, we make more money when you buy directly from IngramSpark. Uh, if you want to know about our upcoming events in September and October, go to the website anandaleek.com/Dr. John and sign up for the email list, and you'll be getting updates from us. Uh, if you've got questions or if you'd like to invite us to come and speak to your community, your organization, reach out to us. All of that information on how you can reach out is at anandaleek.com/Dr. John. You can reach us by email or you can reach us by phone. Those that know. You can always get the contact information for us on that website. Dr. John, you have any last words before we wrap up?
No, I don't. This was this conversation today just brought back such memories for me.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Uh, and leave us comments on what you think about the videos because now you have quite a few videos. Make sure you subscribe to Dr. John on YouTube so you can get notified as soon as they released. See you next time. Bye.
Take care.